ก็อยากเพื่อเป็นประโยชน์แก่ชาวโลกที่จะได้นั่งฟังช่วงนี้แล้วก็ที่เราจะอัดเทปอันนี้เราก็จะได้ประกาศออกไปก็อยากจะแสดงธรรมเช่นเดียวกันเป็นภาษาอังกฤษต่อไปให้คนไทยเราขอให้ตั้งใจฟังด้วยความอดทนด้วยความพยายามด้วยความขันตินั้นแล้วก็อดทนกับสิ่งที่เกิดขึ้นด้วยและ This evening I'm going to give a talk in English and I'm going against the conditions and going against the weather and so you're getting a special talk in English where the electricity's got off and I wanted to say something about Hluang Po Pling's life in English and why we're gathered here today. So if you listen very patiently, as you know thatท่านอาจารย์ Pliang has passed away and we're gathered here to take part in the funeral ceremony. It's 100 years, 100 days and 1 day since he passed away. He passed away on the 15th of February this year and on the 15th of February at 3 o'clock. So we're gathered here today to do the religious ceremonies and taking part in that. And one of the things that I was saying in Thai just recently that I wanted to express something in English as an offering to Hluang Po Plingbecause he was so successful in spreading Buddhism not just in Thailand but all over overseas to many countries. I had the good fortune to travel with him to some countries. I was able to travel with him to Singapore and Malaysia, to Australia a number of occasions, and was able to take him to China. And on each of those occasions, I saw that, and over my many years of association with him, I first met him in 1986, and through that association, then I was able to have a long connection with him. And every time I saw him, I saw he was someone, what the Buddha said is developed in bhavana. The word bhavana in Buddhism means someone who is well trained, well developed, well cultivated. That he was cultivated in body. He was always someone who had a very appropriate deportment for a monk. That is, that he was composed and serene, patient and thoughtful. When he would walk, when he would sit, when he would stand or even lying down, he behaved in the way that we envision, say the Buddha did. That he moved very mindfully. He moved very with great awareness and self-awareness of what he was doing, when he was doing it. And not being in a rush. Been doing things that inspired confidence and trust. He had a charisma, a physical presence and a physical charisma because of the training that he had put himself through as a monk, following the Buddhist trainings of someone who was composed of body. But also he was somebody who was highly developed in sila, in terms of we call development of virtue, in that he had trained with some of the strictest monks in Thailand, keeping the Buddha's precepts and rules in the strictest sense. He was somebody who was of few wants and a few desires. Somebody who his precepts of the 220 rules of training as a monk, he undertook with great diligence and perfection. He was an example to all the Sangha of monks, both new and who had been ordained for a long time, as somebody who lived by the Buddha's way of training, lived by the rules and instructions of the Buddha. And so wherever he was, whether he was here in his monastery or travelling or giving instructions or travelling overseas, he always kept the rules impeccably. Even when he was in unusual environments, like I would see him in airports, I would see him in crowds of people, I would see him surrounded by great gatherings of people, but since his calmness, his serenity, his composure, and his virtue were inspiring. And I'll give an example for the English speakers. I didn't say this in Thai, but one time I travelled with him to Ubon, Rajasthani, and on the plane we were flying up, and on the plane there was a rock band, a very famous rock band in Thailand. I didn't know who they were, but they were very famous singers. And at the airport, when we got out of the airport, there was thousands of groupies, young women and young men, waiting for the arrival of their rock band heroes. And they were screaming at the top of their head. It was just like kind of very famous rock artists or musicians were coming, or movie stars were arriving. And I was contemplating, how am I going to take Luang Por Plieng through this great gathering crowd of people to get them to calm down and not sort of trample on us, because they totally filled the whole airport. And as we went out through the airport, I was leading Luang Por Plieng out first. The rock band were behind us, and these girls were jumping up and down screaming, and there was no way to get past them. So Luang Por Plieng just moved to the front and just stood there very still and very peaceful. And then suddenly all these young girls and screaming, agitated, excited women just calmed down and dropped to their knees, put their hands in Anjali and made an opening for us to walk through. And they all said sadhu as he went through. And I quickly let him out. And then when the rock band came up, they jumped up and screamed and started pulling at these young men as they were coming through. And I was really impressed, because that was the quality of his presence, that even these people who were totally excited, had lost mindfulness, almost insane with agitation and completely lost in their emotions, just in his presence, just standing there silently, he didn't say anything, his presence calmed them down, and then they developed mindfulness and awareness to be able to pay respects to someone who is worthy of respect. And to me that was just a minor example of my experience of travelling with him. I could see his influence on people, even of members of other religions. We had people coming up to us in Malaysia who were Muslim people, who'd come up and say, "Who's that monk? What's his name? Can you tell me, can I go and visit him?" Because they were inspired and uplifted by his presence and his example. And so that was something that you could see, that somebody who has virtue, someone who has morality, somebody who is calm and peaceful, even in agitation and disturbance. So everyone in this room, you keep calm when the rain is coming down. Yeah. Then you're developing the qualities that Luang Por Plieng had. He wasn't concerned with what was happening in the world around him. He was centered and inwardly composed. And that was the beauty of somebody who had a sense of what is virtuous and good. And the other quality of Luang Por Plieng that I noticed, he always had, and his Dhamma talks would be so uplifting for people, because he encouraged goodness. Something that he always talked about in his Dhamma talks was to talk about, trust your goodness. You are a good person. Bring that goodness to the forefront. Speak about goodness. Don't speak about non-good things, things that are going to make you sad or unhappy. Don't speak or do things that will make you sad or unhappy. Don't associate with things that make you sad or happy. Reflect on the Buddha's teachings of karma, that if we develop the good karma of actions of body, speech and mind, then we're developing that goodness and that virtue within us. And so he would raise up the sense of a deep wish within people to do goodness, to be generous, to be kind, to have loving kindness, to give forgiveness to each other, to help each other out, to support each other, to give service and care to others. And that was something that always was moving in his Dhamma talks and his general conversation with all people on all levels in all languages. And one of the other things that I noticed about Luang Por Plieng, in his effort to communicate to people, his kindness, which came from his great metta, he put a lot of effort in learning other languages. When I would come and visit him here, he would often be reading a dictionary and asking me how to use certain words. He was learning English, and he would receive letters in English from disciples, and he would read them to me slowly and ask me, did he understand it correctly? And most of the time he did. His understanding was very good, and he even would answer the letters himself in English and give me his answer to check to see if he had answered that letter correctly in English. And he had this beautiful handwriting and beautiful signature in English, much more better than my handwriting. And he would send those letters off to people all over the world. And I saw the effort that he put in every day, and he said that if he can just inspire that one person by receiving a letter from one of the Kruba Ajahns, one of the teachers, to study the Buddha's teachings more, to practice harder, to aspire for Nibbana, then he felt he has done a great service to the world. And he used to, when he'd go to Malaysia or to China, he would learn Chinese words. And he'd always learn words which were inspiring to make people happy and wish for success and give a blessing. He'd find ways of giving a blessing. And he would do that in great languages. I saw a group of Sri Lankan monks came here one day. As I was sitting speaking to him, they couldn't understand a word of Thai, and they didn't understand English, so I couldn't translate to them. They were sitting with Luang Por Plieng. He couldn't speak to them in Thai or English. I couldn't speak to them in English. I didn't know Sinhalese. So what he started doing was speaking to them in Pali. He started giving the Anattalakkana Sutta, teaching the Buddha's words to them, and these Sri Lankan monks had tears of joy down their eyes because they understood Pali, and it was for them it was like hearing the words of the Buddha. And this was a communication of monks and monks. It doesn't matter whether you're Thai or Sri Lankan monk, we are disciples of the Buddha. We understand the Buddha's language. And in that sort of 15 minutes of saying the words of the Buddha, the Sri Lankan monks were saying sadhu, 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 and they just went totally away inspired. We have met a good monk today, a monk like us, and we are like him. We feel this connection. And that was his skill. And that came from this deep quality of compassion, loving kindness, but also skill and wisdom. And the purity of his example, his openness. He did not differentiate between forest monk and city monk, or as you see today, these monks have come all the way from Bangkok to take part in the ceremony today because of their deep respect and appreciation of Luang Por Plieng, and he had that throughout this whole Sangha, and that was a quality of his virtue. The other quality which he had to an impressive degree was the purity of his citta, which we call the development of the citta, development of the mind. And Luang Por Plieng was somebody who had overtraining not only in one lifetime. He said many times that don't compare yourself to the Kruba Ajahn. Some people, when they meet a great teacher, they think, he was able to meditate so easily and practice so easily. He said, I have not done this on just one lifetime. This has taken the development of the mind over many lifetimes. And that development of the mind over many lifetimes is the process. So I have faith in the process of the practice of developing the mind and the developing of meditation. He had the skill to go into deep samadhi in just one in-breath and dwell in that place all night without moving. He had the great skill of withdrawing from the purity of that meditation and then having certain knowledges and understandings and skillful means for teaching people and giving instructions for people. I would like to say this, but some people might say I'm talking about things that cannot be seen, or I might be talking a bit over what I should, but I will tell you the story. I told this to a group of people from Malaysia this evening. One time I was with Ajahn Bling in Mae Hong Son, and he was giving a Dhamma talk to a group of lay people who were doing a meditation retreat. Everyone was sitting listening to the Dhamma talk like you're doing tonight, all dressed in white, keeping 8 precepts, very respectful. And he was giving a Dhamma talk on the 4 Noble Truths. Dukkha, the cause of dukkha, craving, the ending of dukkha, and the cause of the path, the ending of craving. As he was giving the Dhamma talk, there's 2 ladies came in. They were dressed in mini skirts and they had makeup on. They were in bright red dresses, completely inappropriate for the place and the situation. And they sat down right up near Ajahn Bling and started chatting away, talking, while everyone was sitting quietly listening. And Ajahn Bling didn't move one bit, didn't even look at them. Everyone else was looking at them to get the indication they should be quiet, but he wasn't disturbed. But he started talking about the cause of craving. And then he pointed at them and he said, like these 2 ladies here, they have craving because they want, today they went and saw a diamond necklace in the shop, in the market, and he told the name of the shop. I can't remember it. He said the name of the shop and he told them how much that diamond necklace was. And he says, you've come to see me today because you heard I was here so you can get a lottery number off me so you can buy that diamond necklace. And the lady screamed out, how do you know? And then they went very quiet and put their hands in Anjali and started listening to his Dhamma talk. And then after the meeting, he quickly got from his seat and left the room. I took him back to his hut, to his kuti, and he said on the way back, he said, oh, I shouldn't have done that, but I couldn't help it. Everyone else was listening and determined to listen to the Dhamma so peacefully and respectfully, and those people had no respect for the Dhamma, so I had to be more direct with them, and so that they'd know, and they went quiet and listened afterwards. So that was some of the things that he would use as his great skill so that he could bring people to Dhamma, not for any other purpose, not for getting faith in him, not for any other purpose to get anything of praise or success or encouragement from the world, but solely as he could bring them closer to be able to teach them the Dhamma so that they become interested. And that was one of his great skills. And I'm sure many of you who have been with him and known him for many, many years have had some sort of contact with that. But his development of his citta was also developed in the level of metta, loving kindness. And I think that that's what brings so many people here yesterday evening and today, and there's so many people who can't be here, who would like to be here, who were very touched by his loving kindness and compassion. And his kindness was boundless. He would say to me that he every day he would spread loving kindness to all 4 quarters of the world, around the universe, and encourage loving kindness and peace amongst all beings so that they lived in happiness and harmony and not in conflict. Whatever country they were in, whatever religion they respected, whatever, whether male or female, whatever their situation or environment, he had universal loving kindness for them and would spread that every day so that he could encourage peace and harmony. And so that was one of his very powerful qualities, and what we found inspiring, and people felt that, his sense of warmth, the sense of appreciation when you're in your presence. He would give to people to the point where people did not want to leave his presence. I'm sure many of you have had contact with Luang Por Bling and been with him, and he's giving a Dhamma talk or speaking to you, and he's made you feel so happy and delightful you don't want him to stop. That certainly has happened to me and many people I have brought to have contact with him. And that was one of the things that he had that ability to do with people, to encourage them and support them. The other quality of Ajahn Blieng, which is he was developed and cultivated in wisdom, just as his name says, Panyapadipo, that sort of light, the brilliance of wisdom. The brilliance of his wisdom was that he trained himself to abandon suffering. That is the sign of a wise person, somebody who has given up the cause of suffering and has let go of attachment to body and mind. And that is something that he demonstrated in his life. And somebody who also then has the wisdom to be able to teach that to others, because some people, some monks have liberated themselves. For example, a Pratyeka Buddha liberates themselves but then does not teach anyone else. They're fully enlightened but does not teach. You have other people who have become enlightened monks but are not skilled in communicating the Dhamma to others. But Hluang Po Blieng had that, both the ability to communicate as well as the intellect, the talent and the charisma to communicate the Dhamma to so many people on so many levels across the world. And that really shows the light of wisdom. That is very rare. Some monks become enlightened themselves, as I said, and don't teach anyone. Some monks become enlightened, they can have monk disciples but don't have much lay following. Some monks have only lay disciples but not many monastic followings. But then we see with Hluang Po Blieng, he was somebody who was able to teach the Dhamma at all levels. He gave Dhamma talks to the King and Queen of Thailand. He was able to give Dhamma talks to people who were in positions of business and responsibility in government. He was able to give Dhamma talks to business people, teachers, nurses, school children, and farmers, the village people, as well as then also the Sangha. Teach Dhamma at all levels of monks. Even senior monks were inspired by him. Even monks more senior than him were inspired by his example and his teachings. And all monks, from new monks throughout the range of the Sangha, as well as nuns and people of all other traditions. I've seen other monks from other monastic traditions, like Mahayana monks, have contact with him and have been inspired. I've taken him to nunneries in the West, and he's taught the nuns there and inspired them. So, seeing that wisdom to convey the Buddha's teachings, the pure Buddha's teachings, onto others is a rare and unique quality. And so, in summary, the reason we're gathered here today is because in some way, each and every one of us, our lives has been touched in a very unique way by Hluang Po Blieng's life, an example on one or all of those, some of those or all of those levels, whether it's on the level of his presence, his physical presence and demeanour, his virtue, his purity of mind, or his wisdom. We've seen and appreciated some aspect of that and been inspired to make this effort to come and take part in our duties now. And it is our duty to do the duty to his physical body that is left with us. So he has left that behind with us as something that we have responsibility to do the cremation service for, and respect and pay reverence to that in the future. But more important than that, if we know Hluang Po Blieng, the thing that he has given to us as our inheritance to carry on is the inheritance of the Dhamma Vinaya of the Buddha's teachings. His greatest aspiration, which he constantly talked about, is for us to practice so we can realize the Dhamma as he has realized. And so that is our big responsibility as disciples of the Buddha, to carry on the Buddhist teachings, regardless of what happens around us. Yes? Regardless of what happens around us. That is our individual duty. We don't look at what else someone else is doing in terms of Buddhism. We are responsible for the Buddhist teachings. If we practice the Noble Eightfold Path in our hearts, then Buddhism has not deteriorated in this world. And we keep Buddhism going in this world. So that is our responsibility. So this evening I would just pass that on to you as my offering to Hluang Po Plieng, both in Thai and in English, for all of us to make the determination as disciples of Hluang Po Plieng Panyapadipo. We will endeavour and strive to practice, to develop our body according to Dhamma Vinaya, develop our virtue, develop ourselves in the citta, and develop our wisdom so we become disciples of the Buddha in the fullest sense of the word. Ewan.